So we seem to be on a roller coaster ride all the time, right? So one day Europe is in a good mood, things are happening its way. We've got new opinion polls coming in saying people like Europe, so we're in a good mood. The next day something happens, the Italian elections, the nomination of a new Italian prime minister coming from the populist parties, and then we're in a funk again, right? So my problem is that I think we need to move away from this one day, next day, like the weather, what's it going to be like, rainy or sunny, and get into the bigger picture of Europe. And that narrative of Europe, it resonates in me so strongly. I believe that the European Union has a strong story to sell. And it's not just about crisis. I mean, you talk to Indians, you talk to the Chinese, and they have challenges, they have crises. What we have are issues we have to deal with, but Europe is a good story. I mean, our growth rates are still okay. We have problems, but we can deal with them. We have the tools to deal with Europe's issues. So in my job, because I'm a new European, I wasn't born here, I'm an adopted European, I'm an accidental European, as it were, I believe that there's a story to be told that we're not telling. We're not telling that story. We think people are not interested. I think people are really interested in that story of how Europe was created, what brought people together, the values we share. And the problem is we don't tell it. We're talking, listen to the European politicians. Apart from Emmanuel Macron and, I have to say, Angela Merkel, she said, yes, we can, when the refugees arrived en masse. And she decided on grounds of compassion, but also, I think, thinking of Germany's past, to open the borders. And that, I think, was a very positive move. Macron did the same thing by talking of inclusion, taking away the fear factor, talking about hope in the European Union, and he got votes. And Angela Merkel then had to, also nuance her strategy, her policy, and rightly so, because you can open your borders, but you can't keep them open all the time. You have to have a cool-headed approach to managing migration. So I think Europe, out of all of this, comes out looking okay. The only thing is the populists, the extremists, the anti-democrats, if you are selling a vision of Europe which is full of hate and fear. And people are buying into it. Not everyone. There's a silent majority that's not buying into it. And my message is listen and talk to people, convey the message. Don't just assume that people are hateful and fearful. Get another story going. And I don't think we're doing that. It's just because our politicians, mainstream politicians, aren't capable of it. Lack charisma, lack the emotion. So I think the first message is we are one. We are one humanity, and the problems and the challenges we have in Europe are not unique to Europe. Young people in Europe are dissatisfied and disaffected because they don't think their voice is being heard. This is a global phenomenon, David. This is happening across the globe. Our politicians are old and male. In Europe, they're old, white and male. Elsewhere, they're old, brown, black, yellow, whatever, and male. And they're not listening to the people. And the result is a great kind of gap between the young people and the old people. In moments like the Arab Spring, there's a spark and things change. And there was so much hope out there and so much aspiration that was out there, and then suddenly things changed, except for Tunisia, right? So I think we can learn. And now I can tell you, speaking as I do often to people from the region, there is so much simmering disaffection and so much simmering frustration. It's only a matter of time before that comes out again. I think people are just sort of in a slumber at the moment because the establishment has hit them so hard. Prison and all kinds of torture and things that are happening in Egypt, elsewhere as well. But it's just simmering out there, and we can learn. We should help them as Europeans. We can help them. And that disaffection, I think, is also here in Europe. We're lucky we don't have prison sentences. Demonstrators aren't shot at. And so we have a choice to make. We can work with the rest of the world, or we can just sort of close ourselves down and look inwards. And I think what I learned from young people out there, it's not about religion. It's not about, you're right, I'm wrong. It's really just about the same things that we in Europe worry about: jobs, growth, being part of the story. So we are the humanity in this world, we share so many common challenges. And the politicians, I'm sorry to say, divide us. So the thing is, are we supposed to say thank you, thank you, thank you to the European Union? Why? Yes, there's a sense in the European Union institutions. Yes, we gave them funding and we helped them, and they betrayed us. They're not championing us. But people in this world, they're not going to say thank you. You actually have to go out, seek them out, and make them tell the stories. I mean, as a journalist, as a former journalist, that's what I did. I went to people, I didn't ask them to come to me. And I think there are champions out there. You see it in the Brexit debate even now. I mean, there are so many people who are totally involved in the story of Europe, and they're really trying for a second referendum or whatever, stories they have to tell. So they are there. We have to go out and look for them. We have to actually make the effort, take the energy, and not just sit in Europe and complain about how people are disaffected. Why are they disaffected? Are we listening to them? I mean, I'm sorry, David, but most of the time, people from the institutions come to a conference, go to a convention, make their speech, and then they leave. We need to stop working in silos. We need to stop working in sort of charted territories and journeys that we take, separately, alone. We need to work together. And I think that's the only way we're going to turn the narrative around. Democracy and fighting populism is not just about elections. It comes from people like us, David. We have to make the effort. I mean, I decided at one point, if the school invites me to say something about this or that, I will go. If I need to be part of some conversation, a conference like this, I will go. There's a message to spread. And I think we all have a message to spread. So I'm really happy to go beyond the think tank world, to work with consultancies, communications officers, the EU. We have to do that. And I think the networks, I know it sounds like a cliche, but networks are very important because ideas, power today is not hoarded at the top. Power is actually diffused, and networks are, it's not me who's saying it, but I'm reading this book called New Power, and New Power is just about diffusing power. It goes, through, like electricity, you share it. And for me, this is a sharing event, a learning event, and also to make new partners and new friends.